On a chilly evening, Henry, a 15-year-old boy, was walking slowly along an empty path. This road led him back to where he lived with his mother, but most of the time he was alone because she worked long hours. As he passed by the river, he heard a loud noise and then splashing water like someone was in trouble. Henry quickly turned around to look. He saw a man about 50 years old who was black, wearing a black suit. This man was standing next to a black SUV on the bridge looking down. Below, in the river, there was another man who was white, struggling and sinking into the cold water. Feeling scared, Henry didn't come out right away. He hid and watched. After a moment, the officer got into his car and drove off, leaving the man in the river to drown. Henry's heart was beating fast. He thought about his father, a kind, gentle black man who had been killed, and no one ever found the murderer. Henry couldn't stand the thought of someone else dying unfairly. Without thinking, he decided to act. He jumped into the icy river to rescue the man. After a tough struggle, Henry managed to pull the white man to the shore. He was exhausted but did CPR, his own breath heavy from the effort. Finally, the man gasped for air and woke up. Henry felt so relieved. He didn't know this moment would change his life in big ways. The man, seeing Henry, weakly thanked him. This made Henry happy. He quickly helped the man sit against a tree to protect him from the wind, using his thin, small coat to keep him warm. After some time, as the man got better, Henry learned his name was Timothy. He was 33, and an undercover cop. "What happened?" Henry asked. "Why did that man in the police uniform leave you to drown? Was he really a cop?" Timothy hesitated, looking very tired. Finally, he sighed and explained, "No, he's not a real cop. His name is Shaquille, he's 52, and he's good at pretending to be a police officer to trick people. I'm an undercover officer working on a case about a serial killer who targets rich black people, and Shaquille is the killer. I had enough evidence to put him in jail. Tonight, I planned to meet him to make him turn himself in, but he attacked me instead and threw me into the river." Hearing this, Henry couldn't help but think about his dad's death. How his dad was killed, thrown out of his car, and his body was found on the street during freezing weather. Henry's eyes turned red with anger. His voice shook as he asked, "Could he be the one who killed my dad?" Timothy didn't answer. He just looked at Henry with a lot of sympathy. After a moment, he gently said, "I know you're angry, but this isn't something a kid like you should be involved in. Let us handle it." Shaquille was very dangerous, but Henry wasn't going to give up so easily. Determined, he replied, "My father was murdered unjustly. I can't just sit by and do nothing. I want to help bring him to justice." Henry's determination left Timothy with no choice. Reluctantly, he agreed to let Henry help. Henry took Timothy to his home to rest while they made a plan for what was coming next. Even with his injuries, Timothy drew a detailed map of Shaquille's house that night and taught Henry how to sneak in to get the evidence needed to convict him. "Be very careful," Timothy warned, his voice serious. "Your life is the most important thing." Henry's eyes shone with determination. He believed he could help end this nightmare and bring the killer to justice. Late the next night, Henry stood in front of the big gate of the mansion, following Timothy's instructions. He watched the area, waited to make sure no one was around, then quietly climbed over the fence. His heart beat fast, but he made himself stay calm and followed the plan. Using the map, Henry moved through the dark hallways until he got to a locked door. The lock didn't stop him. With a small tool, he quickly and quietly picked it open. Inside, he searched the drawers and found a bunch of papers that matched Timothy's description. With the first part of the plan done, all that was left was to escape safely and give the evidence to Timothy. But as Henry climbed back over the fence, a chilling voice stopped him. "Hey, kid, stop right there!" Henry turned to see Shaquille, the same man from the bridge standing a few feet away. His breath caught, but his fear turned into defiance. "I'm taking these to the police. You're going to pay for what you've done," Henry shouted. Holding the papers tight, Henry ran. Shaquille chased after him, his footsteps getting closer. Henry's chest hurt as he ran, his eyes spotting a faint light, a flashlight. Timothy was waiting for him. Relief washed over Henry as he ran towards Timothy, shouting, "I got the documents! We can expose him now!" Shaquille's panicked voice called out behind him, "You can't let him see those!" But before Shaquille could finish, Henry tripped and fell hard, the papers scattering everywhere. Timothy didn't rush to help Henry. Instead, he quickly grabbed for the papers. "Don't move or I'll shoot!" Shaquille yelled, pointing his gun at Timothy. Henry stayed frozen, his mind racing. His eyes caught sight of the photos that had fallen from the documents. They showed a creepy room full of human teeth displayed like trophies. And in the middle of it all, admiring his collection, was Timothy. At that moment, the scary truth hit Henry. The man he had saved was the real killer. Henry jumped to his feet, quickly gathering the scattered papers while moving away from Timothy. His wide, scared eyes were fixed on the man he had trusted. His voice shook as he whispered, "You killed my dad." Timothy smirked, stepping closer. "That's right," he sneered. "Not just your father, but lots of other rich black families like him. Don't worry, though, you won't live long enough to be sad about them." The situation had completely flipped. Timothy was the real killer, and Shaquille, the man Henry had been afraid of, was actually a hero. Shaquille had been looking into Timothy's terrible crimes, which were driven by a hate for black people. He was collecting their teeth as sick trophies. The teeth, so starkly white, were his twisted obsession displayed in a creepy room dedicated to his hate. Shaquille had found out about Timothy's horrible acts and confronted him on the bridge, but Timothy escaped by jumping into the river. Henry, without knowing, became a pawn in Timothy's plan when he saved him, trying to get back the evidence that could prove his guilt. Timothy lunged at Henry and grabbed him, using the boy as a human shield. Henry struggled hard, but Timothy's hold was tight. Shaquille stood still, gun pointed but unable to shoot, afraid for Henry's safety. In a brave moment, Henry bit down hard on Timothy's arm. Timothy yelled in pain, loosening his grip just enough for Henry to escape. Seizing the chance, Shaquille shot Timothy in the leg, making him fall to the ground. Soon the sound of sirens got louder and the police arrived. They collected the important evidence and arrested Timothy, ending his terror. As everything calmed down, only Henry and Shaquille were left. Henry looked down, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. If I hadn't saved him, none of this would have—" Shaquille stopped him, placing a comforting hand on Henry's shoulder. "Don't blame yourself. Because of you, he came out of hiding. You were so brave." With a small nod, Henry got into Shaquille's black SUV to go to the police station to help with the investigation. At the station, they collected all the evidence and Timothy was sent to court for his terrible crimes. As the trial started, Henry was found guilty of killing many rich black people to steal their money through awful acts. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance for parole. Many rich black families who had lost loved ones were happy when he was sentenced. Some were crying while others were relieved. As Henry and his mother drove away from the court, Henry looked out the window, a bittersweet smile on his lips. "Dad, justice has been served. Rest in peace now. I'll make sure Mom and I live well for you." The truth might be hidden in darkness, but the light of justice will always shine through. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories.